Dallas Cowboys wide receiver CeeDee Lamb had a massive performance in week 6. So what changed in 1 week? All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on Cowboys. Locked on Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. Check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. Before we even start, just going to apologize. I got people working on my roof today. So if you hear a little bit of banging, it's out of the ordinary. I know, I get it. So
it's Cowboys Twitter trying to get their takes in to let you know exactly how they feel about the Cowboys, right?
This is probably going to be a couple day thing. So I'm just putting that out there. So if you hear it, that's what it is. Later, let's talk about some of the notes that we had from the All-22 for the Cowboys on offense. I want to start with CeeDee Lamb because he had a fantastic game. 7 catches for well over 100 yards on 7 targets. And this is coming off a game where he basically got shut out against the 49ers. So what changed?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is just getting him involved early, and making a concerted effort to give him solid targets and not even just let's run a slant to him real quick, but specifically getting him the ball behind the line of scrimmage, getting him on in quick passes that that are going to have a high success rate to let kind of CeeDee kind of get working a little bit. Because I think ultimately what happens in games is that teams know that we want to get CeeDee Lamb involved in the offense and that we have to get CeeDee Lamb involved in the offense. And so if it doesn't happen early, they know that we're going to be trying to force it late, right? And so there's even more focus on him. So I think it just seems that the offense works a lot better. Dak seems to work a lot better. If he can get the ball to CeeDee Lamb early a couple times and a couple targets, and it just kind of seems to open things up for the rest of the players on this offense and get CeeDee going in a way that at least kind of, you are attacking as opposed to just trying to sit back and see how they're covering CeeDee and kind of reacting that way, which I think, it wasn't producing the results. Like teams were mixing up their coverages against CeeDee. You just have to find a way to kind of quickly get him the ball and then let the defense to scramble to try to adjust to what we're doing.
Over the last 3 years, the Cowboys have been their best on offense when CeeDee Lamb is heavily involved. And I watch some of these other teams like the Bengals or the Rams or the Dolphins, and their number one receivers getting 12, 13, sometimes even 14, 15 targets a game. And I always wonder, why can't the Cowboys do that to CeeDee Lamb? He's not somebody who is inefficient with targets. It's actually the opposite. He is so hyper efficient that I'd rather continue to test that to see, okay, at what point is it a little bit of diminishing returns getting him targets? Because I have a hard time believing that he should go a game without getting 8 or 9 targets unless teams are just flat out doubling him and everybody else is wide open.
I tweeted, I put this in my notes. Give me a first down slant attempt to 88 every other offensive series until someone stops it or it becomes untenable, because it makes so much sense. You get the opportunity. They want to play him in tight coverage. He could win quickly off the line, get the ball to him on the move. I think and it's an easy pass for Dak. I think it just sets up your series so much better than 2 yards in a cloud of smoke at times. So I just think that there needs to be more efficient. Look, I want to see targeting down the field in early downs too, but I think that there's a lot of efficiency left on the table by the Cowboys not including their best player in early passing down situations.
It's because they're getting crushed on early downs. I mean, they're either running the ball too often on first down, or when they throw, it's just kind of low reward throws that are only going to get you 3 or 4 yards. I'd rather just give me an 8-yard route to CeeDee Lamb to get you in 2nd and 2. Give me a slant where he could potentially make a play after the catch. Give him a drag route just to get him in the flow of the game. he's just too good of a player to not have 2 targets a quarter, at least 2 targets a quarter. And that's the way I kind of look at it. Like he should basically get 3 targets a quarter, and I think you'll be okay on offense.
I also think the other thing too that we started to see a little bit more is more of this kind of across the field attack. Like this is one of the things that I was talking about after the game that I kind of noticed more of going back and watching the game is it's good to see him. And, he caught a really deep sail route, which was really great. You saw him on crossing routes on the big first down when Dak was able to kind of break free. And, I just think seeing him run horizontally across the field, especially from the slot, it provides a lot of opportunity for guys that are in man coverage for him to just start running away from folks and getting him the ball on the run. So, I was glad to see them kind of mixing it up a little bit, his usage, and also not just like, route mixing up his route usage, but like when they're targeting him. I think that's really important, is getting him involved in early downs is going to make things so, look, you don't want to be in a situation where you've got 3rd and 6 every single third down. And that's what the Cowboys face. They're lucky that Dak played the way he did because he was able to just be masterful on 3rd down. But we shouldn't be putting Dak in that situation.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree at all. Now, the one thing the Cowboys haven't done a particularly good job of this season is motioning CeeDee Lamb around to get him in matchups. And Mike McCarthy actually talked about this in the press conference, that they kind of stopped all the pre-snap motion once they got some penalties on Monday. I think part of me thinks that's a little bit of a cop out of an answer, but I also believe some of it's true. I don't know how much they practice the pre-snap motion as well.
Well, it's like I was telling John Owning on Twitter. It's 2 things, right? One, it's a legitimate reason as to why they stopped using motion later in the game, right? And if you watch the tape, the early part of the game, they were using a ton of shifts and motions. They were using it a lot. Yep. McCarthy comes out and says, hey, listen, we stopped doing this because we started incurring a ton of pre-snap penalties. And to be honest, like, that makes some sense to me. Now, it's also an indictment on the fact that McCarthy can't get his team to use motions and shifts without incurring penalties. I mean, listen, I hated the referees as much as anybody in this last game. Obviously, I've been very vocal about it, but I'm not blaming the referees for pre-snap penalties.
No, those are obvious. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I think that it's a positive in the sense that it's at least shows you that they were hoping to use motion more, and that bodes well for the future, or at least bodes better than what we saw. But yeah, again, it is also a slight against McCarthy that he can't get his team to use pre-snap motion without incurring penalties.
Yeah, I'm going to guess that after coming out of the bye, we'll see an uptick in pre-snap motion, probably just because they're going to be able to practice it a little bit more. But
well, and I think game situation too, right? Like we just literally have been through 6 games or whatever, and there's very few neutral game script situations considering the fact that we've got. So I agree. I think that there's some of this is situational, and I think it will increase just because.
But if it doesn't, I'm going to be concerned. Like if we get through, if we get like to Thanksgiving and we're still seeing then only motion at like 8%, which I think is the lowest in the league right now, I will be a little bit concerned.
I will be concerned if the Cowboys offense is not functioning well, and that's the case, because that's the other aspect of it, is that it's not like the worst offenses in the league are down at the bottom of that list.
No. There's a couple good ones at the bottom, including
So let's not look at the motion shift list as the end all be all of what is a good offense. I will admit that the top of that list has all of some of the best offenses in football, but it doesn't require. It's not a requirement for you to have a good offense. Obviously, the Philadelphia Eagles don't use a lot of motion or shifts, and they have a very good offense. So I think the key thing is that those offenses that are at the bottom of that list need to have a solid running game, and I think the Eagles currently do. Cowboys, not so much.
No, not so much. And one of the reasons that the Cowboys have struggled a little bit on offense over the last couple of weeks is the number 2 receiver in this offense, who we will talk about next. This episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Football host Vinny Iyer to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long. Whether you're prepping for a daily draft or you're scouting the waiver wire, every week, we're going to provide you the players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So let's see who Vinny has picked out for us in this week's eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. This week, it's Drake London. Drake London is starting to show the Falcons why they drafted him first among many talented receivers in the 2022 draft and why he was such a hot sleeper in 2023 fantasy drafts. London has found his groove in the offense with Desmond Ridder. In the past 2 weeks, he's got 15 passes for 203 yards. He's got another really good matchup this week against Tampa Bay, who has struggled to cover number one wide receivers. London is guaranteed to keep bringing some pretty nice production with a great matchup ahead with not only the Bucs, but also the Titans, the Vikings, and the Cardinals, all before a Week 11 bye. Vinny Iyer from Locked On Fantasy Football is going to help you win your fantasy championship. And eBay Motors knows that a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. The same is true with your vehicle. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure that your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof racks, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We want to let you know about the Locked On NFL Kickoff live show. Each Friday, Locked On will go live at 2 p.m. Eastern on every Locked On NFL YouTube channel. Hosts Anitra Batiste, Jarvis Davis, and Kyle Krabs will break down every game on the NFL slate to get you ready for your team's matchup, your fantasy lineups, your betting angles, and so much more. Plus, get in-depth local analysis from our stable of NFL hosts across the country who know these teams better than anyone else. Find Locked On NFL Kickoff live every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on any Locked On NFL YouTube channel. Landon, I want to ask you about Michael Gallup, who he had a bad day. My question for you is: are you at the point where the Cowboys need to consider seriously, thinking about benching him? Like, has it gotten to be that point?
I don't think it has quite gotten there yet. I mean, I do think that you could start looking at giving Tolbert some more snaps. But going back and watching that game, Gallup was as much of a victim of the kind of lack of control over the game that the referees are having as much as anybody. On at least 3 of those targets, I mean, he was practically being tackled by the cornerback. And this does go back to one of the issues I have with Gallup is that I would like for him to be a little bit more passionate and vocal. Be
physical. Like,
and not even just that. Like, get up and complain about the fact that you were being tackled. Like, get up and get in the refs. Hey, where's my flag? Because it feels like there are times when he got completely mugged and he just got up like, hey, it was no big deal. And I feel like obviously for that ref crew, they need to be told to throw the flags or at least, be shown what the rules are because they struggled. I listen, there were 2 or 3 catches that he suffered from the fact that he doesn't like to catch with his palms out, including the one that was the seam route up that was the great throw by Dak, where it just clanged off his hands instead of, sticking to them, and then onto his chest and then away. And then another one where I think, it was kind of thrown over his
high,
head a little bit.
But it went
through his hands. If he had turned and gone back and gotten the ball, he would have caught it.
If he would have attacked it. If he wouldn't got the ball rather than letting it try to fall into his arms. I
think the bottom line is I don't think that Gallup had as bad a game as everyone is, suggesting that he did. But I will say that he didn't have a great game and that there are things about him that I feel like, that he's got to get a little bit more juice about. I just, what I'm saying? Like, well, and that's where I'd like to see more of.
I think it's the combination of the last 2 games, because if you remember the 49er game, we complained about this after the game on the first interception that Dak threw in that game. It was an off coverage and the defender just kind of overpowered Gallup and beat him to a spot. Like, if you're running a slant, you cannot let a defender basically go through your back and make the play on that ball, right?
Yeah.
And then in this game, I think the game plan for the Chargers is go be physical with Michael Gallup, because I don't know, he's not going to fight through the physicality, right? Like, he's just not that type of receiver. And now I wonder if the book is out on Gallup a little bit, like get in his face, challenge him, be physical with him, because he's just not going to match that physicality.
Well, I mean, especially if he's not going to get any of these calls.
No, that's the
you
thing.
know what I'm saying?
If he's not getting calls, you might be able to just completely neutralize him with your physicality. If you are getting a couple calls, and this is probably where Brandon Staley and the Chargers felt like, if we get an illegal contact or two, it's probably worth it if it's a 5-yard penalty. If we can basically take him out of the game, or if we can force the Cowboys to continue to throw to him over and over instead of targeting CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, and you know, like I said, they basically did. They basically got away with it. I mean, you know, and there was the first slant of the game. You know, Gallup gets off the line very well. It beats the corner so bad he opens his hips the wrong way. Gallup gets back inside to make his route, and the dude basically puts his hand into Gallup's face mask, slowing him down, disrupting the timing. And it's like, should Gallup fight through that in order to try to make the catch? Absolutely. But he also should be yelling at the refs after that snap and saying, hey, did you not see the face mask or the illegal contact? So, I just, it's like, I need more passion from him. And that kind of goes across the board of passion enough to fight through that stuff, passion enough to get pissed off when that stuff's happening to you so that the refs notice it the next time, you know? I don't think that I'm quite at the point where I want to see Gallup benched, because I do.
No, I don't think I want to say bench either. But
I am ready to see those targets start to go more to CeeDee Lamb, and now more to Brandon Cooks, and now and Tolbert to kind of get some opportunities as well. I am ready to see less targeting of Michael Gallup, you know, less specific targeting of Michael Gallup, and more just kind of letting Cooks cook and letting Lamb get the ball more.
Yeah, and that's where I'm at. I just think we are at the point where the days of Michael Gallup running like 45 pass routes, you know, or whatever, are just gone. Like, I think he needs to be in certain situations, give him 15, 20, you know, I'm saying passing snaps, not overall snaps, because he's still a good blocker. But let Tolbert kind of rotate in, and it feels to me very much like Michael Gallup has lost a lot of confidence. The confidence that we saw from him in 2019 and in 2020 just isn't there anymore. And you can see it, like he's fighting himself on the one touchdown that he dropped. There's just no way you should drop that pass, you know, and he's not somebody who really drops passes at all.
I just think he's struggling with consistency right now, because I don't think he's played poorly overall throughout the season. I think he's had 2 bad games in a row, and then before that he had a good game. So I think, you know, we don't have time, unfortunately, to wait for him to get back to consistency. Like, that's the issue, is that, you know, we need, you know, more reliable pass catcher. So I just think until he can kind of fully get back up to the point where he's playing with that level of confidence, you just don't give him the most targets of the game, which is what he ended up with, right? He ended up with more targets, I'm pretty sure, than any other receiver.
Yeah, 3 more than CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, and Ferguson had 1 target, you know? So, like, and I understand, like, you're throwing to the ball to where you think the ball should go, but, like, let's make more of a concerted effort to, like, target some of these other folks. And again, don't need to bench Gallup. Just don't make him the most targeted player on the offense.
And the other thing that's factoring this as well is you have a guy behind him that's kind of chomping at the bit to get more opportunities. And every time the Cowboys have given Jalen Tolbert more opportunities on offense, he's made plays, you know, whether that was in training camp this year, preseason, or even early in the year. And I think that's also what's factoring into this.
And Jalen Brooks, you know, look, I mean, again, he came out there and played for like 10
Jalen
snaps.
Brooks, but Jalen Scott.
Jalen Brooks, he's done a great job of just kind of being the glue guy, like getting some blocks. He's shown you some stuff as a receiver. I think he should get opportunities. Tolbert has obviously earned opportunities. Turpin, every single time that he's been, gone out there and got the ball thrown to him, has helped out there. So let's. I just don't see the need now with all these other guys on the team to give Gallup 10 targets in a game.
That should probably happen.
That should be reserved for CeeDee Lamb or Ferguson, to be honest. So,
well, I don't believe CeeDee Lamb has a single game this year with 10 targets.
That should stop.
That should stop.
Look, I understand that he's the focus of what the defense is trying to do to stop him, but there's ways.
he's also your best offensive player.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is I don't want to belabor this point anymore, but it does feel like the Cowboys, in my opinion, probably need to condense their offense down a little bit rather than trying to get everybody 4 to 5 targets a game. Probably try to have CeeDee Lamb in that 8 to 10 range, Brandon Cooks somewhere in that 5 to 7 range, and then everybody else kind of fall in after that.
Yeah. Just subtract 5 of Gallup's targets from last night and distribute them between, give three to Lamb, 1 to Cooks, and 1 to Ferguson, and I'd be happy.
All right, let's talk about the interior offensive line because they played not a very good game, Landon. We will get to them next. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Do you ever feel like your brain is getting in its own way? I know mine does all the time. Like, you know what you should do, you know what's good for you, but you just can't quite do it. Therapy helps you figure out what's holding you back so you can work for yourself instead of against yourself. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's done entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist. And you can switch therapists at any time for any reason at no additional charge. Make your brain your friend with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That is BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. All right, Landon, let's finish up with the interior offensive line of the Cowboys. Watching the tape, I got to say, I was shocked. I mean, I saw it in real time because we talked about this after the game, but I was shocked at how bad Tyler Smith, Tyler Biadasz, and Zach Martin played. I think all 3 of those guys had their worst games of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think Zach just looks beat up right now. I mean, I think
needs that bye.
Yeah, that bye week couldn't be coming at a better time for him specifically. And honestly, I think that Biadasz is struggling through some stuff too. He looked bad, really bad. And I think a lot of it was just that he wasn't, at top form in order to kind of stay on blocks. That's where it felt like the issue was that he couldn't stay on blocks, and was falling off of stuff. And Tyler, they called several holding penalties on him. He had an offsides penalty. I think of the 3, Tyler had the best night. But I mean, I don't think
this is the worst game that he's played all year.
Sure, without a doubt. And I think that the part that really exacerbated things was that, they ran a couple of outside runs. They had a really nice pin and pull run where Ferguson down blocked it, and you saw Tyron Smith get out in space and block a corner, and it had really just perfect results, what you're looking for. And then outside of that, they didn't have any success seemingly running the ball outside. And it seemed to be almost exclusively because everybody was getting their butts kicked by Tuli Tuipulotu. Like, it was that dude was like, he might as well have been DeMarcus Lawrence out there, honestly. Like, it was just unbelievable. Whether it was Ferguson or Tyler Smith, he was kicking their butts in run game stuff.
We talked about this on the crossover show. Like, I have no idea what USC was doing with him, having him be like a 295-pound edge.
I think you and I had talked about it coming out. Like, we liked the player, but it was like, what world is he like a 290-pound player? It's like,
thanks, Alex Grinch. You did a great job with him.
Yeah. And now you see it, right? Now you see what that guy was. Like, you put him at 266 and he's only like 6'3", but dude was throwing Tyler Smith back and destroying Ferguson. So there was absolutely zero opportunity to run outside zone, in a way that they normally would. They tried running some inside zone and duo, and they just couldn't move guys off the line. So yeah, I think, the bye week will give them another opportunity to kind of sort some of this stuff out. Again, this is only the second game that the starting 5 has played together.
I know, but the problem is, man, both games have been so bad, which is kind of shocking.
Well, I mean, yeah, to be clear, like, they've had their starting 5, but 3 of them are working on one leg at this point.
I will give you another observation I had. This team just can't run from shotgun at all. Like I don't know if it's the blocking or the play design or whatever. And my belief is that a little bit. I think Tony Pollard's just not a good shotgun runner. I think he's much better
Maybe.
off when he's the lone back and he gets a little bit of ahead of steam going. I wonder if that's a change that they need to go back to because man, every single shotgun run just seems like it's such tough sledding for Pollard and whoever's in the backfield.
Yeah, I mean, running right now is just a problem. And I mean, again, I think we had talked about the fact that Blasco is not, with the team still because of a medical issue. I have to think that has something to do with some of this. Like you're just seeing, just anytime they run a power run, like you're just seeing penetrators, like they're not getting to the down block. So linebackers are just triggering downhill quickly, getting into the backfield and creating losses. We've had more like runs for loss that I can remember in a long time. And again, I hate to point this out, guys, but this was something that I was saying that Zeke was incredible about at the time that we just did not appreciate it about him enough. Yeah, he didn't ever get more than 4 or 5 yards, but he never got less than 1 or 2 either. So, and I think that's, that is something that we're missing is that, we aren't getting as many big plays in the running game. We are getting a lot more negative run plays in the run game. And right now, you don't have that run play to kind of hang your hat on again still. So that is something that they're going to need to work on. I think they need to get back into more straightforward, stuff that they're comfortable with, like more duo and more inside and outside.
Yeah, I'm saying more like under center runs.
Sure. Oh yeah, no, totally. Yeah. I mean, to your point about the Pollard situation, I absolutely agree. I think the shotgun stuff has been difficult for it's been more difficult than the rest of the run game stuff out of the shotgun, which is not something that they had struggled with before. I will bring up that I do think that the offensive line played okay in pass protection.
I think they were pretty good. There was a couple.
Yeah,
my run got beat a little bit early. Terrence Steele had 1 rep where he fell down, which seems like it happens every week now. But other than that, it was fine.
Yeah, I there was definitely pressure. But I also think that, some of the sacks that were taken were on Dak. Which is fine because, it was in the process of that's what you're going to get when you're going to get playmaking Dak, right? Because that's what he has to do. And sometimes you're going to get caught from behind by a reach out defensive tackle or whatever.
Also, if you don't want Dak to throw interceptions, like you're so, upset about Dak throwing 15 interceptions last year, then you're going to have to live with him taking more sacks.
Yeah, that's true. So
one more really quick hot take before we head out.
Yeah.
I'd like to see a little bit more Rico Dowdle. I'm not saying a 50-50 split at running back, but for carries, but like 65-35.
Here's my hot take. Let's see 50-50.
Okay.
I mean, honestly,
let's do it.
Because like Rico has shown you that he is a powerful runner. He's consistent as a pass protector. This is not just like, I think the difference that I've always seen in the distance between Malik Davis and Rico Dowdle is that Rico has big play ability. Like he has burst. He's got some juice to him. And on top of that, he's a physical running back between the tackles. The Cowboys have got to figure out something to give their running game a little juice. Pollard is just doesn't have the juice that he did last year. No, it's not that he isn't doing well. I think he's been fine, especially look, that 60-yard pass reception shows you exactly what Pollard can do. He has incredible contact balance.
But it shows you he doesn't have that top end speed because there's no way last year he's getting caught from behind.
I wonder if he didn't know that guy was there. That was my concern.
It was in his blind spot a little bit.
I bet that if he knew that guy was there, I bet he beats it. But you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I do think that there is something to the fact that he doesn't quite have the same juice. And my point is that I think you need to find a way to start distributing some of these touches away from Tony Pollard. You cannot go at this pace for the rest of the year.
By the time we get to playoffs.
And Dowdle has shown you something as a running back. I think you thought that getting into this point that you would have something from Deuce Vaughn, but the truth of the matter is we just have not seen anything from him. So we need to see more from Dowdle. We need to see more of Dowdle, not from Dowdle. I'd like to see more touches on. Yeah.
That is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every single day. We'll be back tomorrow breaking down the All-22 film on defense. We'll give you some of our notes from that. And we are free and available on all platforms. Check out the show on YouTube. Follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus_Mosier. See you guys right back here tomorrow.